Legend has it that it was written by the Dark Ones. Necronomicon ex mortis.
Hi guys, welcome back. So, have you ever thought about who actually created the Necronomicon? Ever wondered? Well, most fans only focus on the Deadites, Ash, or the Gore, but almost nobody talks about the beings who actually made the book itself. Now, for your information, it wasn't made by a random cult or crazy humans. It was created by the Dark Ones.
You have no idea what you're doing.
The Dark Ones were ancient demonic entities who once ruled the Earth, but were eventually banished into another dimension. And after they were trapped in another dimension, they needed a way to return, and that's where the Necronomicon came in. The book was essentially their way back to Earth, and every possession, every Deadite outbreak, and every apocalypse in the Evil Dead franchise could ultimately be traced back to them. So, today we're gonna break down who the Dark Ones really are, what they actually want, and why they might just be the scariest villains in the entire Evil Dead franchise.
I wrote this book.
Who are the Dark Ones, and where did they come from? The Dark Ones are ancient demonic beings who existed way before humans stood anything about magic or Deadites. The Dark Ones are basically the original evil behind the entire Evil Dead universe. They aren't just regular demons running around possessing people. The Deadites were basically their servants, while the Dark Ones were the real ones controlling everything like a puppet master. And according to the Evil Dead lore, Earth once actually belonged to them. Apparently, long before modern civilization, the Dark Ones ruled the planet with massive armies of Deadites and turned the world into a complete nightmare for mankind. Humans were basically powerless under their rule, and they constantly lived under the fear of these demonic creatures. But eventually, a hero known as the First Chosen One rose up against them and managed to banish the Dark Ones into another dimension. However, they were never truly destroyed and were only sealed away. This is why they kept on searching for a way to return. And to be honest, that's what makes the Dark Ones so terrifying. They aren't just ghosts or monsters who are killing people just for fun. They are interdimensional conquerors whose main goal is to take back Earth and be able to rule it once again. The scary part is that they don't even need to appear physically most of the time to create chaos. Their influence alone is more than enough to destroy a couple of people through possessions, Deadite outbreaks, and massacres. Even though the Evil Dead franchise hinted us about the ancient evil since the very beginning, the earlier movies had never completely elaborated on who the Dark Ones actually are. The original, The Evil Dead movie, mainly focused on the Necronomicon and the Deadites, but as the franchise continued, especially in Ash vs. Evil Dead, fans got a much clearer picture of the bigger mythology behind the book and the terrifying beings connected to it. That's why I feel the Dark Ones are even scarier than the Deadites themselves, because mostly in horror movies, the villains directly need to hunt their victim down, but the Dark Ones leave the Necronomicon behind and leave the rest of the job to human curiosity.
Book of the Dead.
Why did they create the Necronomicon? Now, obviously, if the Dark Ones were trapped in another dimension, they needed some kind of way back to Earth, right? Well, guys, this is where the Necronomicon became far more dangerous than most people realized. The book was never just some creepy ancient artifact full of random spells, and that it was basically created as a gateway that could slowly reopen the barrier between worlds and allow the Dark Ones to return once again. Once you start to understand the true purpose of the Necronomicon, the entire Evil Dead franchise suddenly becomes even more terrifying, because every single time that someone reads that book, they're unknowingly helping the Dark Ones get one step closer to the Earth. And to be honest, the craziest part about the plan was that humans willingly helped them every single time, due to their curiosity. Almost every Evil Dead story starts the same way. Someone or the other discovers the book. They get curious, which leads them to reading out a few lines. And then suddenly chaos begins. Be it Professor Nobi, a group of teenagers in a cabin, or random people exploring abandoned places. The pattern always repeats itself. Even the appearance of the Necronomicon felt very disturbing. The book was covered in human flesh, full of horrifying illustrations, and written using blood-like ink. It immediately gives people the feeling that they should stay away from it. But somehow, curiosity always won, And this is exactly what the Dark Ones relied on. Things became even more interesting when the franchise started introducing different versions of the Necronomicon. In the original Evil Dead movies, the book mainly acted as a tool that unleashed Deadites and demonic possessions. But then, later, the movie slowly expanded the mythology behind it and showed that the Necronomicon was connected to much bigger apocalyptic events. For example, the 2013 Evil Dead movie made the book feel even darker and more dangerous by showing the details of rituals and warnings connected to the end of the world. The Evil Dead Rise took things even further by revealing that there may actually be multiple volumes of the Necronomicon instead of just one single book. And to be honest, well, the idea makes the entire Evil Dead universe way more scarier, as it means destroying one book might not be able to stop the evil completely. Different versions of the Necronomicon seem capable of causing different kinds of disasters, but all of them, at the end of the day, serve the same purpose, which is to help the Dark Ones slowly reclaim the Earth. This also means that the Deadites were never really the final threat. They were simply the beginning of something much worse. The real goal was always the return of the Dark Ones themselves, and that is what makes the Necronomicon one of the most dangerous objects in horror history. No matter how many times people try to destroy it, burn it, or lock it away, the book somehow always finds its way back. Evil Dead constantly shows us that evil never truly disappears. As long as even one version of the Necronomicon still exists somewhere in the world, the Dark Ones will always have a chance to return. What happens if they return? What would happen if the Dark Ones actually returned to Earth? Well, Ash vs. Evil Dead already gave us an idea of that possibility in its finale. Instead of the normal world that we're used to seeing, the future seemed completely destroyed. Society had collapsed, Deadites were everywhere, and the entire planet turned into a nightmare. Humanity was barely surviving, and evil had completely taken over. To be fair, the world almost looked like a mix between Evil Dead and Mad Max, except somehow it was even more horrifying. And the scariest part of all was that this was not just another Deadite outbreak. This felt like a complete win for the Dark Ones and their influence over Earth. And to be honest, this is what makes the Dark Ones so different from most villains, as they aren't creatures that can simply be killed off forever. As they are interdimensional beings, the best that anyone can do is to banish them or temporarily stop them from their wrongdoings, but erasing them is next to impossible. Throughout the entire Evil Dead franchise, Ash keeps fighting against Deadites and trying to stop those outbursts from happening again and again. But no matter how many times he wins, the evil somehow always finds a way to come back. And most of the time, it all starts with the Necronomicon falling back into the wrong hands. And that, I feel, is the scariest part about all of it. The Dark Ones don't even need to do anything on their own, because humans always end up helping them unknowingly. Someone or the other always gets curious enough to read the book, translate its passages, or ignore the warnings written inside it. That curiosity is what keeps restarting the cycle over and over again. And that, my friends, is the real horror of the Evil Dead franchise. It isn't just about gore, possessions, or Deadites attacking people. The terrifying thing is that the evil never completely disappears. No matter the number of times that people try to fight back against it, the Dark Ones are always waiting in the background for another opportunity to return. As long as there is even one Necronomicon present somewhere in the world, the danger doesn't really end. Eventually, yet again, someone will get curious and start the cycle all over again. That is exactly why the Dark Ones are considered to be the true mind behind everything in Evil Dead. They don't need to constantly show up or directly attack humanity. They simply exist, wait, and let human curiosity do all the work for them. Because in the end, the real danger was never really just the Deadites or the Necronomicon. It was the fact that something out there is always waiting for someone to make the same mistake again. So yeah, guys, that's everything about the Dark Ones and their connection to the Necronomicon. At the end of the day, they are the real masterminds behind the Evil Dead universe, quietly pulling the strings from another dimension. They ruled Earth once, got banished, and created the Necronomicon just so that they could find a way back again. And the scariest part is that they don't even need to do much, as human curiosity does it for them. Let us know in the comments what you think about the Dark Ones. And if you want more Evil Dead breakdowns, don't forget to like and subscribe.